you always get to go first. So let me
You
go
make
first.
me go first. I don't want to hear
well,
it.
here is the correct top 10. Like, this is the correct top 10.
Yeah.
I see you in the background making the little hand gestures with your Rudy Poo ass. But here's my top 10. The actual top 10 of college football. Number 1, Georgia. They put on a display like nobody's business. Joe made a risky choice of bringing them out and putting them at 2 last week like a Rudy Poo. He shouldn't have done that. Number 2, Michigan. Number 3, Florida State. Number 4, a new team in my top 10, the Oklahoma Sooners, when the winds come rather than the planes. Ohio State at number 5. Number 6, Penn State. Number 7, in Oregon. Number 8, Washington. So a 7 and 8 matchup this week. Number 9, Texas. And number 10, Alabama. Go ahead and tell me why you hate my Alabama pick at number 10.
I don't hate it as much as I have in the past. Admittedly, I was really against it.
Last week when you yelled at me, you wound up being wrong.
No.
Oh.
No, I didn't end up being wrong because, might I remind you, you also picked Texas A&M. So we were both wrong in a way. We were both wrong to some extent.
Why do I always do that? Why does my brain tell me one thing in my heart, I do something else?
It's a really good question. I didn't like it last week because I really thought that Texas A&M was going to win this game. And I think that the general public, except for Alabama fans, thought that Texas A&M was going to beat them. And that was going to immediately remove any credibility for Alabama for the rest of the year. I think that they sit perfectly at that like 11 or 12 spot because, again, top 3 defense, one of the best defenses in college football. They are impossible to move the ball against. They're taking the ball away. They're pressuring opposing quarterbacks at a crazy clip. But their offensive issues are going to lead to 1 or 2 more other losses. And I think there are more well-rounded teams that I have seen with better playmakers, like the team that I have at number 10, which I'll get to in a second. I just think that lopsidedness, it's hard for me to buy in. Let me ask you this. If Iowa was undefeated, would you put them at the end of the season?
Here's a problem that I hate with the what if games in scenarios like this. Okay, is that they're not right, because if they were undefeated, you know what I would have them around? Probably what I have with Louisville. Right? We don't have Louisville, who's an undefeated team in the top 10. They have a more impressive win over Notre Dame. I get that it's at home, but here's a question that you have to start asking yourself. This Louisville team, who did have some struggles, first game, they went toe-to-toe with Georgia Tech. It wasn't pretty, but they continue to win. Here's the issue that I have, Joe. You ready? Name another team, and let's say you're 11 to 25, that you're 1,000% confident and or would be a favorite against Alabama. Because UNC, Louisville, what other undefeated am I missing here?
You had USC ranked, right?
No, I did not.
USC?
Yo, USC would get clobbered by Bama. So you start.
I just don't know about that. I just don't think
You're lucky I did not put Bama above Texas, even though Bama beat Texas. I mean, Texas beat Bama. I think they're the better team today than they were a couple of weeks ago.
Bama has improved, but my issue is I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that they win against most of those opponents. Yes, they beat Louisville. Louisville looks good right now, but
UNC.
But Louisville doesn't beat UNC.
No, Bama would beat UNC.
I just don't think that's a foregone conclusion. We also, at the same time, I think it's very important to ask ourselves this, because we did this last week with Oklahoma and Texas. What competent quarterbacks has Texas gone up against? Quinn Ewers is the only one, and he played his best game. So are they really as good as we think that they are?
Considering what Jackson Dart's done the last 2 weeks, I think you need to throw him in that conversation. He's thrown for 700 yards and has 10 touchdowns, Joe. I mean, He's done it against 2 teams that possibly could win the West. By the way, just throwing this out there, newsflash, Bama beat Ole Miss and handily in the second half. Something clicked for them and turned it on. But you know what UNC does not have, which I guess we should probably go to your top 10 because you have UNC in there. Let's just do this really quickly. That way that people get the reference of what we're going to talk about.
Yeah. Number 1, I have Georgia. Number 2, Michigan. Florida State at number 3, number 4, Oklahoma, number 5, Ohio State.
So we have the same top 5 in order.
Yeah. Number 6, Washington, number 7, Oregon, number 8, Penn State, number
6,
9,
7,
Texas.
8, we would be fighting over semantics.
Which we're not going to do today.
Number 9, right.
And my number 10 is North Carolina.
So the question is here, Joe, you put North Carolina into your top 10 at number 10.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't believe I don't believe that they beat Louisville today. I don't think that they would beat Alabama today. Because look, Drake May, still threw a pair of picks against South Carolina. What do you think Bama's defense would do to him?
But that's part of my point why I think that North Carolina has had one of the most quietly impressive seasons is that he wasn't sharp. He didn't play his best game. He struggled a little bit. He threw those 2 picks. But what they lacked last year that they now have this year is they have a pass rush. They've got a defensive line. They have a defense that's actually standing up and stopping
all
people.
Over their defense and Gene Chizik too. I was so wrong on that.
I just think that North Carolina has one game where they got caught up with App State. It doesn't look good on the resume. Sure, we can knock them for that. But every step of the way, they have dismantled everyone that they've played. And I think that they show a lot more balance than what Alabama has shown us. Sure, Alabama's defense is a lot better than North Carolina's defense. But I would argue that I think that Drake May would be able to hold his own going up against that defense. I think that he would be fine. If Quentin Ewers can do what he did, I think Drake May could.
No, because he does not have the athletes that Texas does. He doesn't have the O-line. Tez Walker in this scenario would likely be the 4th best overall receiver that, he's not even, he wouldn't even be in Texas's top 3. Okay.
That's fair.
So, I mean, listen, that North Carolina offensive line, from what I've seen so far, Bama would destroy them. They would not be able to run the football, which would put a lot of pressure on Drake May, and he would have to be Superman. And I got to be real with you. I don't know of a game, which you could probably tell me, and I could be wrong here because I don't watch them religiously. I don't remember a Drake May game where he went off and won.
This year, he did it last week against Syracuse. He had an insane game.
Syracuse is not a good team. They play Rudy Poop teams. Okay. They just got blown out by Clemson, and everybody wants to say, "Oh, well, they beat them 40-3 or whatever." That's a great. Okay, sounds good. You beat them at home 40-3, but at the same time, I know what I'm getting in Bama. I know what I'm getting in Alabama.
Yeah, you're right. We do know what we're getting. We do know what we're getting with Bama.
And here's another thing. You know what? UNC is not tested. At some point, there comes a point in these top 10 rankings. You got Alabama has played Texas. They've played Mississippi State. They've played Ole Miss. And I'm forgetting somebody else that they played.
Alabama's playing.
Yeah. Oh, well, South Florida. But I'm not taking in South Florida into Alabama's equation. I refuse to take them into equation because Saban, I think, botched that game on purpose. I think he did that on purpose.
Okay. Well, we don't know that.
I do know that.
I think to your point about, yes, we do
know. They were running the ball on 3rd and 9.
We do know what we have with Alabama. And what we have with Alabama is a really good defense and a lackluster offense. When faced with a challenge by a competent coach, they're going to get completely taken out of the equation. I just don't have faith that Alabama is going to be able to beat the remaining top teams in their schedule. Yes.
It doesn't matter. The question becomes, I don't care about what they got on their schedule moving forward. I care about if you think that UNC on a neutral field could beat Bama, and you know that.
I think that they can. I really do think that they can. Dude, they have, except for the App State game that went to overtime, they have won by multiple scores against every single team that they've played, and they have smoked.
Those teams are Bama.
Oh, but okay, they have consistently smoked every single person that they've played, every team that they've played. 31-17 against South Carolina, which South Carolina was hyped up going into the season.
But they're
Minnesota
not
was
good.
31-13. UNC was 41-24, and Syracuse was 40-7. I get that they haven't played anybody, and it's understandable to have that take and to talk about that. But at the same time, because they haven't played anybody, doesn't mean that we should discredit them their performance.
I'm not discrediting them. What I'm saying is on a neutral field, you go out to Council Bluffs at 7 p.m., Alabama's front seven is going to kill Drake May.
I just don't agree with that. I don't think it's just a guaranteed.
Joe,
like they're going to get smoked.
Multiple teams with better offensive lines, A&M and Texas included, both of them included. A&M, there were times where Bama was waxing that ass. And North Carolina does not have that O-line. And quite honestly, you know what else they do? They go man-to-man across the board, and they would send the house at Drake May, make him beat you. Make him beat you, and he wouldn't do it. Because he doesn't have the dudes around him. They wouldn't be able to run the football.
I don't think it's that much of a guarantee.
It would be. All right, both of us had USC out. Now,
yeah,
I am going to hit a little bit of a teaser. I don't like USC's position right now this week versus Notre Dame. I never have liked, ever, in the 40 years of podcasting that I've done, 5 years, I don't like when a team gets embarrassed on the road and then comes back home in a top 25 matchup. The team that's on the road coming into that hostile environment, I never pick them. I stay away from the game. Now, we both have USC out of our top 10. And for me, all I'm going to say is, what I would kind of somewhat ask, I don't know what we're really getting from them, okay? Because they play so emotional. They're up and down, up and down. For 7 minutes of one quarter, they look like the best team in the country, even somewhat defensively. They'll get you a stop here and there. And then all of a sudden, I turn around, the next 8 minutes of the quarter, they suck. They outright suck, offensively and defensively. If Caleb Williams was not on that team, I don't know where they'd be. I really don't.
They'd have multiple losses right now. By the way, it was so stupid that Caleb Williams got all upset in the press conference talking about of course, everyone's going to keep talking about your piss poor defense. It stinks. It's terrible. It's holding you back.
Be honest, Joe. The third quarter last week, so did Caleb Williams. The only reason that team came back last week is because Caleb Williams on multiple drives on third down. Remember, he spiked the ball, okay? He was rolling right. I know it's a tough throw, but he spikes the ball. He's trying to make a play in the backfield on another, winds up taking a sack, I believe. Mm-hmm. Has another one where he throws the ball away, where he's got a wide-ass open crossing route. Well, it's not just the defense at this exact moment, Joe. I went back and watched that game again today. Caleb Williams has some really bad moments and times. Now, the problem is in a flip of a switch, he turns it on, and they look like the best team in the country again offensively with 14 yards per play. Joe, there are times in games where they're clicking offensively. They're gaining 14 yards per play, the best in the country.
Nuts.
Which is insane. Then it's like a tale of two quarters. They either look really good or they look like absolute dog shit.
Their defense is way too porous. I'm tired of talking about them as even a contending team. I don't know if the USC Notre Dame game is where they fall.
I'm taking Notre Dame.
I'm probably going to take Notre Dame because I'm a homer and I don't like to root against my own team and pick against my own team. But there is going to be a time down the line that USC does lose more than one game because of their defense. Their defense regressed.
Joe, I do not, and you know how I feel about Notre Dame. I said it all day yesterday. I don't feel good for USC in this situation. And
no, I mean you're pissed off, and
Notre Dame's going to be able to do.
What?
They gonna run that ball down.
I hope so. This is either a get right game for Notre Dame's offense, or it's a get right game for USC's defense.
Look, I don't like USC in the way that they're playing. Joe, he's got to fire Alex Grinch. He's got to. USC fans, I know that you're sticking up for your guy. I'm looking you dead in your soul right now. Your defensive coordinator sucks, okay? He sucks.
I want to talk about Oklahoma really quick before we do transition.
All right, go ahead. We got Oklahoma at number 4 in both of our polls.
I think I'm glad that we're on the same page with this. They belong in this placement at the number 4 spot. Because they've got one of the best wins outside of.
I mean, they have the best win.
Well, then they should be ahead of Florida State, I would argue.
No, the only reason, Joe, that I don't think that they should be is because Florida State beat Clemson and LSU.
Okay, good. Fair point. I think, though, that Oklahoma after that does have probably the best win of the season against a team that justifiably remains in the top 10, has looked really, really good, that Texas team, and they played them down to the wire. Both those teams are still very, very good. That Oklahoma team is going to sit firmly somewhere in that 4 or 5 spot in most polls, and they're going to go unscathed. I don't see any possibility on the remaining schedule for them to lose a game unless they completely lay an egg. And I just don't think that's going to happen.
It's of course, when I need to make a really good point and I have a really good point, my internet starts sucking.
Why? What was the point you were going to make?
I don't even remember now. Stupid internet, man. All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're fine. You're coming in.
Okay. Oklahoma, I do agree with you, has the only thing that I'm cautious with here, outside of Dylan Gabriel, Joe, they don't have a running game. I'm worried about that. I'm really worried about that. They don't have a back that could take anything over.
Yeah, they need to do a much better job of incorporating running backs into the running game because you made a really good point.
They don't have them. They don't have the personnel.
No. That is definitely a problem. That's definitely one thing that's going to hold them back. If they can throw the ball and Dylan Gabriel can pick up all those yards, but man, they don't have anyone right now that's fighting for yardage.
Now listen, it happened 33% of the teams won. Stay with me here. Oklahoma needs to be careful because if I'm not mistaken, they have a back-to-back road series, okay? Alabama was the only team in the country over the last 20 years. I talk about this stat all the time. LSU, Georgia last year, and Alabama this one that went on the road in back-to-back weeks and won. That is insane. Oklahoma and Texas both have that at the end of the year. If both of them slip up, okay, well, especially Oklahoma, I do think that they'll be out of the playoff picture because I think the Big 12 champions got to win out. They got to win out. There is no one-loss Big 12. I could see a one-loss Big 10. I could even see a one-loss Pac-12, and definitely a one-loss SEC is getting in. Big 12-wise, you better if you're the commissioner and you want a playoff team in there, you better pray to God Oklahoma doesn't lose.
Yeah, that's really going to hurt them. The resumes for both of those teams, there's not going to be a lot. It's going to be singular wins that you're going to be pointing to.
And this could be the only one for Oklahoma.